They didn't name it Heartbreak Ridge until after we'd finished bleeding for it. Before that, it was just a hill. 700 meters of rock and scrub in central Korea. Didn't look like much on the map. Just another ridge in a country full of ridges. Just another objective in a war that nobody back home seemed to care about anymore. We'd take that hill 17 times, lose it 16. Each time cost us men we couldn't afford to lose. Each time the North Koreans would come back and we'd have to do it all over again. That's why they called it Heartbreak Ridge. Not because of the casualties, though God knows there were plenty of those, but because of the futility, the grinding, repetitive, meaningless futility of taking the same ground over and over and watching good men die for it. My name is Robert Sullivan, from Boston, Massachusetts. I grew up in Southie, working-class neighborhood, Irish Catholic family. Was 22 years old in September 1951, a rifleman with the 2nd Infantry Division, 23rd Infantry Regiment. We called ourselves the Tomahawks. I'd been in Korea since March, seen combat already, some firefights, some patrol actions. Thought I knew what war was, thought I understood. Heartbreak Ridge taught me I didn't know anything. The war had settled into a stalemate by then. Peace talks were happening at Panmunjom, but nobody expected them to go anywhere. Both sides were dug in along the 38th parallel, fighting over hills and ridges that would probably be given back in negotiations anyway. But we had to take them, had to hold them, had to prove we were stronger, tougher, more willing to bleed than the other side. That was the strategy. That was the plan. Bleed until the other side gave up. My squad was typical. 12 men from all over America. Squad leader was Sergeant Miller from Kentucky. Career soldier, 28 years old, been in since 45. Tough as nails, but fair. Good man to have in charge. There was Private Jackson from Detroit. Big guy. Played football in high school. Private Kowalski from Pittsburgh, always complaining but always there when you needed him. Corporal Williams, our 2nd in command, from Georgia. Quiet, competent, deadly with a rifle. Private Martinez from New Mexico. Bar Gunner Davis from Ohio. Machine Gunner Thompson and his assistant Carter from somewhere in the Midwest. Rifleman Peterson, O'Brien, and myself. And our medic, Doc Harrison, who nobody knew where he was from because he never talked about it. 12 men. We'd trained together stateside, shipped to Korea together, fought together. Most of us wouldn't make it off that ridge. We got the order on September 13th, 1951. Briefing at 0600. The whole battalion crammed into a tent, looking at maps, listening to officers talk about objectives and tactics and expected resistance. Heartbreak Ridge was held by the North Korean 6th Division. They were dug in deep. Bunkers, trenches, machine gun nests. They had the high ground. They had prepared positions. They had orders to hold at all costs. We had orders to take it at all costs. Expect heavy resistance, the captain said. Like that was supposed to prepare us. Like knowing we were walking into hell made it easier. We moved out that afternoon, loaded into trucks, drove north toward the ridge. You could see it from miles away, a long rocky spine running north-south. Didn't look like much, just another hill. We didn't know it would become our graveyard. Sergeant Miller gathered the squad before we started the approach. Stay close. Watch each other's backs. And remember, we're not here to die for our country. We're here to make the other bastards die for theirs. Good words. I believed them at the time. We started climbing at dusk. The slope was steep, covered in loose rock and scrub brush. No cover, no concealment. Just open ground between us and the North Korean positions. I remember thinking, this is going to be bad. I had no idea how bad. The first assault started at 0600 on September 14th. Artillery barrage pounded the ridge for 30 minutes. Shells screaming overhead, explosions tearing up the hillside. We crouched in our assembly area watching the ridge disappear in smoke and fire. "That'll soften 'em up," Jackson said. Big smile on his face. Still thought war worked like it did in the movies. Sergeant Miller just shook his head. He knew better. The barrage lifted. Whistle blew. We moved out. 3 companies advancing up that slope. Hundreds of men climbing toward prepared positions. The North Koreans waited until we were halfway up. Out in the open, committed no cover, then opened fire. Machine guns, mortars, rifle fire, everything at once. The men in front of me just started dropping. No drama, no Hollywood death scenes, just falling. 1 second they were climbing, next second they were down. Dead or wounded, didn't matter. Either way, they weren't moving. "Get down, take cover." But there was no cover, just rocks and dirt and bullets. We hit the ground anyway, pressed ourselves flat, prayed. A mortar round landed 10 feet to my left. The explosion threw dirt and rock everywhere. My ears rang. Couldn't hear anything but a high-pitched whine. "Move! Keep moving!" Sergeant Miller was up, waving us forward. "We stop here, we die here." He was right. Sitting still on that slope meant death. Had to keep moving. Had to close the distance. Had to get to the North Korean positions or die trying. I got up, ran. Fired my M1 at muzzle flashes. Ran some more. Dove behind a rock. Reloaded. Got up. Ran again. Martinez went down, the BAR gunner. Took a burst across the chest. He flopped backward, rifle flying from his hands. Davis tried to grab the BAR, keep it in action. Got shot before he could reach it. 2 men gone in 5 seconds. We made it to the first trench line. Jumped in. Found it full of North Korean soldiers. Close quarters fighting, bayonets, rifle butts, grenades, screaming in English and Korean. I shot a man at 3 feet. Saw his face clearly. Young, scared, then dead. No time to think about it. Another one coming. Shot him too. Williams was next to me, working his rifle like a machine. Methodical, calm, kill, work the bolt, kill, work the bolt, like it was just another day. We cleared the first trench, pushed forward. The North Koreans fell back to the second line. We followed. More fighting, more dying. Jackson got hit climbing over a bunker. Grenade. Shrapnel tore through his legs. He was screaming. Doc Harrison was there instantly, trying to stop the bleeding. But there was too much. Too many wounds. "Get him back," Miller ordered. "Peterson, O'Brien, get him to the aid station." They dragged Jackson back down the hill. I never saw him again. Found out later he bled out before they reached the bottom. Kid from Detroit who played football. Dead on a ridge in Korea that nobody back home had ever heard of. We took the crest by 1,400 hours. 8 hours of fighting for 700 meters of rock. Cost us over 100 men from our battalion alone. Dead and wounded. But we had the ridge. We'd done it. We started digging in, foxholes fighting positions. Sergeant Miller was organizing fields of fire, setting up defensive positions, getting ready for the counterattack we knew was coming. It came that night. The North Koreans hit us just after dark. No warning. Just suddenly they were in our positions. Dozens of them, fighting hand to hand in the darkness. I was in a foxhole with Kowalski. He was on watch, tapped my shoulder. "Movement," he whispered. Then they were on us. Grenades first. We dove out of the hole, hit the ground. The explosion in the foxhole where we'd been sitting. Then they came with bayonets. I fought with my entrenching tool. Swung it like an axe. Hit a North Korean soldier in the head. Felt the impact. Saw him drop. Kept swinging. Kowalski was firing his pistol, point blank. The muzzle flashes lit up faces, theirs and ours, frozen in combat. The fight lasted maybe 10 minutes. Felt like hours. When it ended, the North Koreans pulled back, left their dead, left ours too. Sergeant Miller did a head count. We'd lost 4 more men in the counterattack. Thompson, our machine gunner, was dead. Carter wounded. 2 guys from another squad killed. "We're not going to hold this," Williams said quietly. "Not with what we got left." Miller nodded. "I know, but those are the orders. We hold." At dawn, the North Koreans hit us again. Bigger attack this time, better organized. They came from 3 sides, overran our positions. We fought them off but barely, lost more men. By noon on September 15th, day 2, we'd been pushed back to the lower slope. The North Koreans had retaken the crest. "We're going again," Miller told us. "Tonight, take it back." I looked at what was left of the squad. 6 men from the original 12. 2 days and we'd lost half. And we were going back up that ridge, and this wasn't war. This was a meat grinder. And we were the meat. But we went. Because that's what infantry does. We go where they send us. We fight where they tell us. We die when our number comes up. We attacked at 2000 hours, night assault. Climbed that ridge in the darkness. Got hit by mortars, by machine guns, by everything. Made it to the crest again. Pushed the North Koreans back. Again. Lost more men. Again. This time I saw Kowalski get it. Mortar fragment. Took the top of his head off. He didn't even scream. Just dropped. Kid from Pittsburgh who complained about everything. Gone. We held the crest for 6 hours. Then the North Koreans counterattacked. Overran us. Pushed us back down. Sergeant Miller was wounded in the retreat. Shrapnel in his leg. Doc Harrison patched him up, but he couldn't walk. They carried him down. Williams took over the squad. What was left of it? 4 of us now. 4 men from 12. 3 days. And we still hadn't taken Heartbreak Ridge. The battle went on for weeks. Same pattern, every time. Assault the ridge. Take it. Hold it for a few hours or a few days. Get counterattacked. Lose it. Regroup. Do it again. By the end of September, I'd climbed that ridge 8 times. 8 times up that blood-soaked slope. 8 times over ground covered in bodies, American and North Korean mixed together, rotting in the sun and rain. You stopped seeing them as people after a while. The dead. They were just obstacles. Things to step over. Things to use for cover when the shooting started. I remember using a dead North Korean as a sandbag. Propped him up in front of my position. Bullets hit him instead of me. Saved my life. I didn't even feel bad about it. That's what we'd become. The replacements kept coming. Fresh-faced kids straight from the States, 18, 19 years old. They'd join the squad, ask questions, try to make friends. Most of them were dead within a week. We stopped learning their names. Why bother? They'd just die anyway. Easier to think of them as the new guy or that replacement. Easier to not care when they got hit. Williams and I became the old hands, the veterans. We'd been there 3 weeks. Might as well have been 3 years. Everyone else was dead or evacuated. Doc Harrison was still with us. Don't know how. Medics had one of the most dangerous jobs, running around in combat trying to save people. But he kept surviving, kept patching us up, kept watching men die despite his efforts. He stopped talking after the 2nd week. Just did his job in silence, that 1,000-yard stare in his eyes. We all had it by then. The fighting blurred together. Can't tell you which assault was which anymore. They were all the same. Climb, shoot, kill, watch friends die, take the ridge, lose the ridge, do it again. I killed dozens of men on that ridge, maybe hundreds. Lost count. Stopped thinking about it. They were just targets, shapes to shoot at, problems to solve. One time, might have been late September, I was clearing a bunker. Threw in a grenade, heard it explode. Went in to make sure they were dead. Found 3 North Korean soldiers, 2 dead from the grenade, 1 alive but wounded. Kid, maybe 17, crying, begging in Korean I didn't understand. I shot him. Didn't even hesitate. Just raised my rifle and shot him in the head. moved on to the next bunker. That's what Heartbreak Ridge did to you. Turned you into something that could kill a crying teenager without feeling anything, without even thinking about it. The artillery was constant, both sides pounding the ridge day and night, shells landing everywhere. You learned to tell them apart by sound, ours versus theirs. Learned to know when to duck and when it was safe. Except it was never safe. A shell could land on you any time, random, no skill involved, just luck, good or bad. Williams got hit by artillery on October 2nd. We were in a trench. Shell landed 20 feet away, shrapnel everywhere. I was fine. Williams took a piece through the chest. Doc Harrison tried hard. But the shrapnel had hit something vital. Williams drowned in his own blood while we watched. He'd been with me from the start, from training stateside, through the whole Korean War. Made it through everything just to die in a trench on a ridge that didn't matter. I was alone then. Last man from the original squad. Everyone else dead or evacuated. Just me and Doc Harrison and whatever replacements they sent up. The replacements got younger, or maybe I just got older. Hard to tell. Some of them looked like children. Fresh faces, clean uniforms. Still had that innocence in their eyes. Not for long. There was one kid, can't remember his name, who joined us in early October. First day on the line, first combat. We were holding a position halfway up the ridge. North Koreans attacked. Kid froze. Just couldn't move, couldn't shoot, couldn't do anything. I grabbed him, shook him, screamed at him to fire his weapon. He just stared at me with these wide, terrified eyes. A grenade landed next to us. I dove one way. The kid didn't move. Too scared to react. The grenade killed him, torn apart by shrapnel, dead before he hit the ground. Hadn't been with us 6 hours. I didn't feel anything. Should have felt something. Guilt, sorrow, anger. Felt nothing. He was just another body. Another name I never learned. That's when I knew I was broken. When the death of a terrified kid didn't register anymore. When I'd seen so much death that it became normal, expected, meaningless. The smell was the worst part. You couldn't escape it. Dead bodies rotting in the heat. Blood and shit and cordite and burned flesh. It soaked into your uniform, your skin, your lungs. You couldn't eat without tasting it. Couldn't sleep without smelling it. Some guys threw up constantly, couldn't handle it. I stopped noticing after a while. Just another part of the ridge, another thing you got used to. We took casualties from disease as much as combat. Dysentery, parasites, infections, living in filth, drinking contaminated water, eating spoiled rations. Half the battalion was sick at any given time. But you couldn't leave the line unless you were dying. Minor illness, tough it out. Diarrhea, keep fighting, infection, wrap it and keep going. I had trench foot by mid-October, feet rotting in my boots. Every step was agony. Doc Harrison looked at it, said I should be evacuated. I refused. Where would I go? Back to a field hospital just to get sent back to the ridge when I healed? Better to stay. At least here I knew what to expect. The futility was crushing. We'd take the ridge. They'd take it back. We'd take it again, over and over. Hundreds of men dying for ground that changed hands every few days. And for what? The peace talks were ongoing. Eventually, they'd draw a line and the war would stop. That line might not even include this ridge. Might be miles north or south. All this death might be for nothing. Probably would be for nothing. But we kept fighting anyway. Because those were the orders. Because that's what infantry does. Because stopping meant all the previous deaths were meaningless, and we couldn't accept that. Had to believe it meant something. Had to believe they died for a reason. Even though we knew they didn't. By mid-October, the 2nd Division had lost over 3,700 casualties at Heartbreak Ridge. killed, wounded, missing. The French battalion attached to us was nearly wiped out. The North Koreans lost even more. Thousands dead. All for one ridge, one insignificant piece of ground in a war nobody cared about. I'd been there a month, felt like a lifetime. Every day was the same nightmare. Climb the ridge, fight, kill, watch people die, hold the ground, lose the ground, start over. I stopped thinking about home, stopped thinking about after, stopped thinking about anything except the next minute, the next hour, the next firefight, living in the moment because planning for the future seemed pointless. The future probably meant dying on this ridge. Why think about it? Doc Harrison cracked in mid-October, just broke. We were treating wounded after an assault. He was working on a kid who'd been hit in the stomach, trying to stop the bleeding, trying to save him. The kid died, just died. Nothing Doc could do, and Doc just stopped, sat down, stared at nothing, wouldn't move, wouldn't talk, just gone. They evacuated him. Combat fatigue, mental breakdown. Last man from the original group besides me. And he was gone. I was alone, surrounded by strangers, fighting a battle that would never end for a ridge that didn't matter. That's when I understood. We weren't fighting to win. We were fighting to prove we could take the pain, to prove we were tougher than the enemy, to prove we wouldn't break no matter how much they ground us down. Heartbreak Ridge wasn't about tactics or strategy. It was about will, about who could endure more suffering, who could watch more men die and keep going. And I was still there, still fighting, still climbing that goddamn ridge, still breaking piece by piece with every assault. The battle finally ended on October 13th, 1951. 30 days of fighting. The French battalion made a flanking attack, cut off the North Korean supply lines. They couldn't hold the ridge without supplies. They withdrew. We'd won. Finally. After a month. After thousands of casualties. After 17 separate assaults. We'd won. It felt like nothing. No celebration, no relief, just exhaustion, just emptiness. I stood on the crest of Heartbreak Ridge and looked around. The ground was torn apart, craters everywhere, destroyed bunkers, shattered trees, and bodies. So many bodies. Some buried, most not. Some ours, some theirs. All dead. This was victory. This was what winning looked like. I felt nothing. They pulled us off the line after Heartbreak. Sent us to the rear for rest and refit. Hot food, clean clothes, showers, sleep. The other guys, the new replacements who'd only been there a week or two, they were happy, relieved, celebrating being alive. I couldn't feel it, couldn't celebrate, couldn't relax. Just sat in my tent, staring at nothing. Couldn't sleep even though I was exhausted. Couldn't eat even though I was starving. An officer came by, asked if I was okay, if I needed to see someone, talk to someone. I said I was fine, wasn't fine, but what was he going to do? Everyone was broken. Everyone had seen too much. I wasn't special. They gave us 2 weeks to recover, to remember how to be human, to forget what we'd seen on that ridge. It wasn't enough. Wouldn't have been enough if they'd given us 2 years. I got promoted, made sergeant, not because I'd done anything special, just because I'd survived, because everyone else was dead, because a squad needed a leader and I was the one still standing. Didn't want it. Didn't want to be responsible for more men. Didn't want to watch more kids die under my command. But you don't say no in the Army. You take the stripes and do the job. They assigned me a new squad, 12 men, all replacements, all fresh. None of them had seen what I'd seen. None of them understood. I looked at them and saw corpses. That's all they were. Dead men who didn't know it yet. Give them a few weeks on the line and they'd either be actually dead or dead inside like me. I tried to prepare them, tried to teach them what they needed to know, how to move under fire, how to dig in, how to survive. But you can't teach survival. You can't teach luck. Either the bullet finds you or it doesn't. Either the shell lands on you or it doesn't. No amount of training changes that. We went back to the line in November. Different sector, different ridge, same war. The fighting continued, not as intense as Heartbreak. Nothing was as bad as Heartbreak, but still grinding, still deadly, still meaningless. More men died. I can't remember their names. Didn't learn most of them. Just faces that disappeared. Replacements for replacements. I stopped caring. Stopped trying to keep them alive. Just gave orders. Followed orders. Watched them die. Requested more replacements. Started over. That's what I'd become. A machine that processed men. Took fresh soldiers. Sent them into combat. Watched them become casualties. Got new ones. Over and over. I got wounded in December. Shrapnel in my shoulder. Not bad. Should have been evacuated. Refused. Where would I go? What would I do? The line was all I knew. The fighting was all I had left. Doc patched me up. New Doc, not Harrison. Kid from California. Enthusiastic. Still believed he could save everyone. He'd learn. Christmas came. They tried to make it special. Hot turkey. Decorations. Mail from home. I got letters from my mother. Talking about Boston. About the family. About how proud everyone was. How brave I was. How they couldn't wait for me to come home. I couldn't read them. Couldn't handle the disconnect between their world and mine. Between what they thought war was and what it actually was. I threw them away, unopened after the first one. Better not to know. Better to stay in this world where everything made sense in its own horrible way. The war ground on. Winter came, frozen ground, snow. Cold like Chosin, but not as bad. At least we weren't surrounded. At least we weren't fighting for our lives every second. Just most seconds. The peace talks continued, on and off, progress and setbacks. Everyone knew the war would end eventually. Just a matter of when. How many more would die before someone signed a piece of paper? We kept fighting, taking hills, losing hills, patrolling, ambushing, being ambushed. The daily routine of infantry combat. I got hit again in January 1952. Bullet through the leg. This time they made me go to the hospital. No choice. Couldn't walk. Spent 2 weeks in a hospital in Japan. Clean bed, nurses, real food. Should have been heaven. Felt wrong. Felt like I was abandoning my squad. Like I was betraying the guys still fighting. Guilt ate at me constantly. The doctor said I should rotate home, said I'd done my time, said I'd earned it. I requested to go back to Korea, back to my unit, back to the line. They thought I was crazy. Maybe I was. But I didn't know how to be anywhere else. Didn't know how to exist outside of combat. The war had become my identity. Take that away, and what was left? I got back to the division in February. Most of my squad was gone. New faces, new replacements, same story. We kept fighting through spring. Same grinding combat, same meaningless objectives. The peace talks dragged on. The dying continued. I stopped counting, stopped tracking, stopped caring about time or dates or anything except the immediate moment. Fire and movement, cover and concealment, kill or be killed. That was my world, that was my life. That was all there was. By summer of 1952, I'd been in Korea for over a year. Been in combat almost continuously. Should have rotated home months ago. But I kept volunteering to stay. Keep extending. Keep fighting. Because I didn't know how to stop. Because going home meant facing what I'd become. Meant trying to be normal when I knew I'd never be normal again. Better to stay. Better to keep fighting. Better to die here where it made sense than try to live in a world where nothing made sense anymore. I was 23 years old, felt ancient, felt dead, felt nothing. Heartbreak Ridge had broken me. The months after had finished the job. What was left was just a shell, a machine that knew how to fight and kill and survive, but had forgotten how to be human. I'd watched hundreds of men die, had killed hundreds more, had climbed more ridges than I could count, had taken more ground than I could remember. And for what? The war was going to end in a stalemate. We weren't going to win. We weren't going to lose. We were just going to stop fighting eventually and pretend like it meant something. All those men, all that death, all that suffering, for nothing. But we kept going, kept fighting, because that's what we did. Because we didn't know how to do anything else. I was still on the line when they finally signed the armistice in July 1953. Almost 2 years after Heartbreak Ridge. 2 years of grinding combat. 2 years of watching men die. When they told us the war was over, I felt nothing. No relief, no joy, no satisfaction, just emptiness. The fighting stopped, the shooting stopped, but the war in my head continued, still continues, will always continue. They sent me home in August 1953. No choice this time. War was over. Time to go back to the world. I didn't want to go. Tried to argue, tried to stay, but there was no war to fight anymore. No reason to keep me. They were sending everyone home. I flew out of Korea on a transport plane. Watched the country disappear below me. All those ridges, all those hills, all that blood-soaked ground. Somewhere down there was Heartbreak Ridge. Somewhere down there were the bodies of my friends, my squad, all the men I'd watched die. I left them there, had to. But it felt like betrayal, like I was abandoning them, like I should have died with them and didn't. Landed in California in September, processed out, given my discharge papers, honorable discharge, combat infantry badge, some medals I don't remember earning, handshake from an officer who thanked me for my service. I stood outside the base in my uniform with a duffel bag, free, civilian, home. Didn't know what to do, didn't know where to go, didn't know how to be a person anymore. I took a bus to San Francisco, then another to Boston. 30 hours of travel, 30 hours of sitting still, 30 hours of not being in combat. It was torture, couldn't relax, couldn't sleep, kept waiting for something to happen, an attack, incoming fire, something, but nothing happened. Just peaceful countryside passing by, normal people living normal lives, a world that had kept turning while I was in hell. My family met me at the bus station in Boston. My mother cried. My father hugged me. My younger brother looked at me like I was a stranger. I was. They took me home, to the house I'd grown up in, my old room, my old bed. Everything exactly like I'd left it 2 years earlier. But I wasn't the same. The kid who'd left from this house was dead, died on Heartbreak Ridge. What came back was something else. They threw a welcome home party, family, friends, neighbors. Everyone wanted to hear about the war, wanted stories, wanted to know what it was like. I couldn't tell them, couldn't explain. How do you tell your mother about using corpses as sandbags? How do you tell your kid brother about shooting a crying teenager? How do you explain to normal people that you became a machine that processed death? So I smiled, nodded, said it was tough, but we did our duty. Said I was glad to be home. Said all the right things. They seemed satisfied. They got their hero's son back, their stories to tell, their pride. I got nothing. That night, I tried to sleep in my old bed. Couldn't. Too soft, too warm, too safe. Felt wrong. I ended up on the floor with a blanket. Still couldn't sleep. Every noise made me reach for a weapon that wasn't there. Every shadow looked like an enemy. Every moment of quiet felt like the calm before an attack. I lasted 3 days at home. Then I left. Told my parents I needed to find my own place, get settled. They understood. Thought I just needed independence. Truth was, I couldn't be around them. Couldn't handle their normalcy, their innocence. Their world where the biggest problems were bills and weather and what to have for dinner. I rented a room in Southie, cheap place, barely furnished. Didn't matter. I didn't need much. Got a job at the docks, loading ships, manual labor, mindless work. Show up, do the job, go home. Perfect. Except I couldn't do it. The loud noises, cranes, ships, trucks, sounded like combat. I'd hit the ground, duck for cover. My co-workers thought I was nuts. They were right. Lasted 2 weeks, got fired, got another job, lasted a week, got fired again. Tried construction, factories, delivery, couldn't hold anything, couldn't function in normal society, couldn't be around people, couldn't handle noise or crowds or anything that reminded me of combat, which was everything. Everything reminded me of combat. I started drinking, helped at first, numbed the memories. Let me sleep. Let me forget for a few hours. But then the nightmares would come anyway. Worse than before, more vivid, more real. I'd wake up screaming, wake up swinging, wake up thinking I was back on the ridge, back in combat, back watching my squad die. The neighbors complained about the noise. I got evicted, found another place, got evicted again, started moving every few months, running from something I couldn't escape. The breaking point came in January 1954, 5 months after coming home. I was walking down the street in Boston. Cold day, snow on the ground, peaceful, normal. A car backfired, I hit the ground, crawled for cover, reached for my rifle, started scanning for targets, combat mode, automatic, instant. People stared. Some laughed, some looked concerned. A cop came over, asked if I was okay. I couldn't answer, couldn't speak, just lay there on the snowy sidewalk shaking, convinced I was back in Korea, convinced I was under fire, convinced I was about to die. The cop called an ambulance. They took me to a hospital, psychiatric ward, kept me for observation. The doctors asked questions about the war, about what I'd seen, about what I was feeling. I couldn't answer most of them. How do you explain Heartbreak Ridge to someone who's never been there? How do you make them understand that you're not crazy, you're just broken? That this is what war does to you? They diagnosed me with combat fatigue and anxiety neurosis. Said I needed rest, medication, therapy. I spent a month in that hospital. Group therapy with other veterans. Guys who'd been in World War II mostly. Some from Korea. All of us broken in different ways. We didn't talk much about what we'd done, about what we'd seen. We couldn't. The words didn't exist. The civilians wouldn't understand. So we sat in our group sessions and said nothing meaningful and pretended the therapy was helping, and it wasn't. They released me in February, said I was improved, stable, ready to reintegrate into society. I wasn't, knew I wasn't, but I said what they wanted to hear, played the game, got released, went right back to drinking, right back to the nightmares, right back to the isolation. I tried the VA, tried to get help, but the system was overwhelmed. Thousands of guys like me. Not enough doctors, not enough resources, not enough people who understood. So I stopped trying, stopped asking for help, just existed, day to day, hour to hour, drink to forget, sleep when I could, wake up screaming, repeat. My family gave up on me. I don't blame them. I'd given up on me too. By mid-1954, I was living in a flop house in the worst part of Boston. No job, no prospects, no future, just surviving. barely. I thought about ending it. Thought about it a lot. Would be easy. Would be painless. Would be final. But I couldn't do it. Not because I was brave. Because I was a coward. Because ending it would mean all those deaths on Heartbreak Ridge meant nothing. Would mean I survived for no reason. So I kept living, if you could call it living. The kid from Boston who'd enlisted with dreams of serving his country, he was dead. Died on a ridge in Korea in September 1951. What came back was just a shell, a broken thing that looked like a man but wasn't. I'd survived the war, but the war hadn't let me go. It followed me home, lived in my head, controlled my life. I was still on Heartbreak Ridge, still climbing, still fighting, still watching men die, still broken, still breaking. It's 1987 now. 36 years since Heartbreak Ridge. I'm 58 years old. Been carrying this weight for more than half my life. The years after the war were hard, the hardest. Took me a decade to even start functioning like a normal person. And even then, normal was relative. I hit bottom in 1956, living on the streets, drinking anything I could get. No contact with family, no hope, no future, just waiting to die. A priest found me, Father Murphy from St. Augustine's. He'd been a chaplain in World War II, seen combat, lost men. He understood in a way most people couldn't. He got me into a program, church-run, for veterans who'd fallen through the cracks, gave me a bed, meals, structure. Most importantly, other guys who'd been there, who understood. Took me 2 years to get sober. 2 years to stop having nightmares every night. Still have them, just not every night. 2 years to remember how to be human. Father Murphy died in 1970. Heart attack. I still think about him. He saved my life when I'd given up on saving it myself. I got a job in 1959. Janitor at a school, night shift, worked alone. Perfect for someone who couldn't handle people. Kept that job for 23 years. Until I retired last year. Never married. Tried dating a few times in the 60s. Never worked out. How do you explain to a woman that you can't handle fireworks? That you sleep with a light on? That some days you can't leave the house because the world feels too dangerous? You don't. You just stay alone. It's easier. My family reconnected in the late 60s. Tentatively, slowly. My mother was still alive then. She'd never given up on me, even when I'd given up on myself. We had 10 good years before she died in 1978, and my father died in 1982. Never really understood what happened to me. Thought I just needed to toughen up. Get over it. That generation didn't talk about these things. Didn't acknowledge that war could break you. My younger brother, he's a lawyer now. Successful, family, normal life. We talk sometimes, holidays. He tries. But there's a distance between us, a gap that can't be bridged. He lived one life, I lived another. The nightmares never stopped. 36 years and I still see Heartbreak Ridge. Still see Kowalski's head exploding. Still see Williams drowning in his own blood. Still see that North Korean teenager I shot. Still see all of them. Every face I killed, every man I watched die, they're all still there, still with me, will always be with me. I can't watch war movies. Can't handle the 4th of July. Can't be in crowds. Can't handle loud noises. Can't do a lot of things normal people take for granted. But I function. More or less. Got through each day. That's all you can do. The VA helped eventually. Once they started understanding PTSD, that's what they call it now, not combat fatigue. Post-traumatic stress disorder. Gave it a name. Made it real. Made it something they could treat. I've been in therapy on and off since the 70s. Medication helps. Support groups help. Nothing fixes it. Nothing takes it away. But it helps manage it. Helps make it bearable. I found other Heartbreak Ridge veterans over the years. We'd meet occasionally, share stories, share silence, share the understanding that only we could have. Most of them struggled like me. Failed marriages, job problems, substance abuse, mental health issues. A few did okay, most didn't. Some didn't make it at all. Suicide, alcoholism, drugs. The war claimed them years after the fighting stopped. I understand why. There were times I almost joined them. Times when living seemed harder than dying. Times when the weight was too much. But I'm still here. Still fighting. Different kind of fighting than Heartbreak Ridge, but fighting nonetheless. They dedicated a memorial in Korea a few years ago for the guys who died at Heartbreak Ridge. I didn't go, couldn't face it, couldn't go back to that country, couldn't stand on that ground again, but I think about it. Think about that ridge. Wonder if it looks different now. Wonder if you can still see the scars, the craters, the trenches, or if nature has reclaimed it, hidden the evidence of what happened there. Doesn't matter. The scars are still inside me, still as fresh as they were in 1951. People ask me sometimes, younger people, people who didn't live through it, they ask what the Korean War was about, what we were fighting for, why it mattered. I can't answer that. Can't explain the geopolitics, the domino theory, the Cold War calculations. All I know is that thousands of men died on ridges and hills that most Americans have never heard of. Died for ground that was given back in negotiations. Died in a war that ended in a stalemate. And what do we have to show for it? A divided Korea, a forgotten war, a generation of veterans who came home broken and were told to just get over it. Was it worth it? I don't know, can't know. The men who died can't answer, the men who survived, and we're not sure either. All I know is that I lost my youth on Heartbreak Ridge, lost my innocence, lost my ability to be normal, lost years of my life to alcohol and nightmares and isolation. I survived. But survival isn't the same as living. And I'm not sure I've really lived since 1951. I'm 58 years old now, retired, living alone in a small apartment in Boston, not far from where I grew up. Full circle, I guess. I have a routine, wake up, coffee, read the paper, walk to the park if the weather's good. Come home, watch TV, go to bed, wake up screaming, start over. That's my life. That's what 36 years of recovery looks like. The young man who climbed Heartbreak Ridge, that kid from Southie who thought he knew what war was, he died up there, along with his squad, along with thousands of others. What came down wasn't him. What survived wasn't really living, just existing, just carrying the weight of all those deaths, all that loss, all that meaningless sacrifice. I carry them with me every day. Sergeant Miller, Jackson, Martinez, Davis Kowalski, Williams, Doc Harrison, all the replacements whose names I never learned, all the men I watched die. They're still with me, still on that ridge, still fighting, still dying, and so am I. People say time heals all wounds. It's been 36 years. The wounds are just as deep, just as raw, just as painful. Maybe they never heal. Maybe this is just what we are now. We who fought on forgotten ridges in a forgotten war, broken, scarred, surviving, but not living. I think about that teenager sometimes. The North Korean I shot in the bunker, the one who was crying, begging for his life. He was somebody's son, somebody's brother, maybe somebody's father. And I killed him without hesitation, without mercy, without feeling anything. That's what Heartbreak Ridge made me. That's what war does. Turns you into someone who can kill a crying kid and not feel anything. Turns you into a machine that processes death. I got my humanity back eventually, mostly. But it took years, decades. And even now, there's a coldness inside me that wasn't there before Korea. A numbness, a distance from normal human emotion. That's the real cost of war, not the deaths, though those are terrible enough, but what it does to the survivors, how it breaks them, changes them, turns them into something other than what they were. I'm 58 years old. I've lived longer after Heartbreak Ridge than I lived before it. But I'm still defined by it, still shaped by it, still trapped by it, still climbing that ridge, still fighting that battle, still watching men die. 36 years later, and I'm still there. Will always be there. They say the Korean War ended in 1953. For most Americans, it did. For me, for us who fought there, it never ended. We're still fighting, still bleeding, still dying, just slower. I don't know how many years I have left. Maybe 10, maybe 20. However many it is, I'll spend them carrying Heartbreak Ridge, carrying the weight of all those deaths, carrying the memory of what we did, what we lost, what we became. That's my burden. That's my life. That's what survival means. I'm Robert Sullivan, from Boston. I fought at Heartbreak Ridge in 1951. I survived, but part of me died up there. The best part, the human part, the part that could feel joy and hope and love. What's left is just this, a broken old man with nightmares and scars and memories that won't fade. That's the real story of Heartbreak Ridge. Not the tactics, not the strategy, not the victory, but the cost, the human cost, the lives destroyed, the men broken, the futures stolen. We took that ridge, we held it, we won, and we all lost.